Relocation doesn't always mean starting from scratch. Sometimes it's about continuing the work you love, just in a new setting. Hello, and a warm welcome to Living the Dream French Riviera, the podcast where we explore women's professional journeys while relocating to the south of France. I'm your host, Cecile. Today's episode features Christine, a wellness expert who brought her holistic approach to health with her when she moved from Denmark to the Riviera. From teaching Pilates to sharing one of her signature recipes, now a best-selling kombucha flavor, Christine has stayed true to her path while making this region home. Thank you for being with us today, Christine. We're looking forward to hearing about your move to the French Riviera, how life evolved after relocation, and how these journeys shaped both your personal and professional path over the years. Let's set the scene a little. When did you move to the south of France? Where were you coming from and what was life at the time?
I moved here in September 2006 and my girls were then 2.5 and 5, and we were actually moving from Denmark, so it wasn't my first move. I was very happily settled in Denmark, close to Copenhagen. It was my husband that really wanted to move down to the south of France at the time, so that was the move down here. So it's almost 19 years ago now. My husband played professional football, and we met when he was playing professional football in the UK. And unfortunately, he had to retire early due to injury, but it had been his dream to actually play for a French team. And he moved around a bit after he retired from professional football, and he went into TV work. And there came a point when he thought, well, I can actually do my job and live anywhere, so why don't we try the south of France while the girls are still small? And we didn't actually think it was going to be a permanent move, but here we are, still almost 19 years later.
What were you expecting from this new chapter in your life then?
My husband and I, he's Danish and I'm English, so we've lived in England for a short period together and we've lived in Denmark for 7 years together, and we were never on neutral territory. So moving to the south of France actually gave us the opportunity to set up home on neutral territory together and see how that would work. And it's actually been fantastic.
And did you speak any French at the time?
No, I wouldn't say you could call it I spoke any French. I had O-level French from school, so it was very much je m'appelle and that kind of thing, and that was it. So it was very, very basic. I think the hardest thing for me when we arrived almost 19 years ago is the fact that there weren't as many British-speaking people in the area that I live in now compared to now. I did feel a little bit lost without having the French, even though the French people are very accommodating, and as soon as you try saying something, they'll also try the other way. It was a bit tricky in the beginning, especially having two small ones who didn't speak French at all. They only spoke Danish, not even English.
Let's explore your professional path and how it evolved through your relocation. What was your professional background before moving to the south of France then?
My professional background started in the UK. So I was a dancer until I was in my early 20s. I also worked as a PA actually, so I was extremely good at organising things and was a very successful PA. So I actually had that as a full-time job between 20 and 25. And at 25, I got very itchy feet. And there was a very new course that came out, which was called Personal Training and Sports Therapy. So I did a diploma in personal training and sports therapy and ended up working in gyms and training other people. Also, it included massage, so I was doing massage. And I was teaching what was then called exercise to music or aerobic, so very much Jane Fonda, you know, all the leggings and everything, and the leg warmers, and jumping around a studio teaching those kind of classes. And Pilates I actually had when I was studying dance, so when I was 19, so we're talking many, many, many years ago. So before anyone had ever heard about it as a training form. So I set up my business in the UK first and then moved to Denmark, and then once I was in Denmark, I started working as a personal trainer in a fitness centre, and I was one of only 4 personal trainers at the time. It was quite new. In about 2001, I was able to train with Stott Pilates with a number of other physiotherapists and trainers in Denmark. So I got my mat work qualification and my reformer qualification way back in 2002 and 2004. So we're talking, more than 20 years ago that I got my Pilates qualifications. And I've done DVDs on 9 months to a successful pregnancy. I have appeared in books and magazines in Denmark. And then on the relocation, I decided I was dropping the massage, I was dropping the personal training and focusing just on Pilates, because when I moved to France in 2006, there was hardly anyone else teaching Pilates down here. So it was very much niche. Now I know you can find a Pilates teacher or several in every town. I was one of very few down in the whole of the south of France at that time.
Did people know what Pilates was at the time?
No, I had to explain exactly what Pilates was, and it was a case of just come and try it and see. But we're going to lengthen your muscles and strengthen your core and, very much have a go.
So this is how you built your clientele?
Yeah, I started teaching my elderly neighbours and their friends. That was it.
And then it was word to mouth?
Yes, exactly.
And it expanded?
Exactly. I've always done that because I like my work to grow organically. And especially having 2 young children, I needed it to fit in with my lifestyle. I wanted to be in full control. And I've never really liked advertising or marketing in any way when you don't really know who's coming to you. So I'd much rather it was through referral. Just makes everything a bit nicer, than having some random stranger call you up. I mean, yes, I do take on people that I've never met, of course, but it's nice when it comes through a recommendation from someone else.
Did it take the pressure off your shoulder?
Yes, what was very useful in starting with my then elderly neighbours is that it was a form of exercise that they could do without being overly strenuous for them. They didn't like the thought of going to a public gym, and they wanted someone to instruct them and feel a difference, which they obviously did with their spines and their core. So that was really, really nice.
Did you have to do any special training to be able to teach in France? Did you have to adapt in any way?
Not at all. All my qualifications are international. So I've always made sure that from the outset, whatever qualification I've taken is one that can be used wherever I move to. So it doesn't matter. Stott Pilates is an American company, but it's recognised worldwide. It's the same with my nutrition qualifications. They're internationally recognised.
Did you have any hurdles you faced along the way?
I think my only hurdles were the lack of French in the beginning, because if there was a friend that was coming to try Pilates, it could have been a French person who understood English but didn't necessarily speak English. It was a case of I couldn't go deeper with explanations when I had the lack of French.
I imagine your groups were small.
Yeah.
Therefore, you had to have a proper conversation with them. Did it help encourage you to take French lessons, or as your girls were growing, you learned French along the way? How did you manage this?
Yeah. So I tried French lessons. Absolutely hated French lessons, and I did not like homework, nor was I very good at sitting down and doing homework. My girls were still young, so I would pick up words from them. But to be honest, it's since the girls have left home, I'd say only in the last 5 years where I've been watching the news, that my French has probably picked up a lot of speed. And I find that I do understand everything that is on Le Journal. I might not be able to have a perfectly fluent conversation, but that's the way I've learned it.
What about French administration? Because can you tell us?
Okay, I found the bureaucracy in France is second to none. So what I did, I went down to Mitchell & Johnson. I found them randomly, and they helped set up an auto-entrepreneur for me. And it's literally rolled since then. And I think just making sure that someone else within the profession has set it up is always a good idea. So I didn't have to worry if I was missing something and try to do it myself, because I even find I'm not the greatest person when it comes to technology, and I don't want to misread something on the internet. So it's nicer having someone else set it up for you and make sure all the right boxes have been ticked, and yeah, go from there.
So you started with your neighbours and friends of friends. How did you come into nutrition, from Pilates to nutrition, or from Pilates to where you are now?
So I went from Pilates to Barre and nutrition at the same time. So Barre work is a mixture of sort of ballet, dance and Pilates together, and it's much more dynamic and standing. And I trained in that in 2011, again through an American company, but I trained in London. And now Barre is quite big, but it's much more dynamic, and you can use weights. You can in Pilates too, but you might even have arm weights and leg weights and you bands and balls standing and moving around. So, you can get a lot more cardio in that way. And at the same time, I'd had a diploma in nutrition. I come from a family of chefs. I've always been interested in nutrition and preventative healthcare. There just came a point in my life where I was like, I need to know more, and I enrolled for a full-time bachelor, having girls of the age of 7 and 9, and having quite a few classes at that time, because I was then taking on teaching Barre and Pilates. So it was quite tough doing the full-time bachelor, but I did it sort of within the 3 years that I was supposed to do and graduated. And funnily enough, that wasn't enough for me. So a year later, I started a master's and went down the road of doing the master's as well. And it's been such an enlightening process for myself. I think it's shown me just how deep I can dig when I need to, and to follow my passion, and that my passion has no limits. And now I'm putting a lot of stuff online as well. And since COVID, as you know, everything went online. I have clients internationally, not just in the local area, but all around, which is really nice.
For you, it was more than a transition. Wherever you lived, you managed to continue what you were doing, as maybe in a little different way, expanding. But as you say, nutrition was circling back from where you came from.
And so was the movement.
Although I think sometimes I see, especially here in France, coming from a country of gastronomy, sometimes gastronomy and nutrition not exactly go together, but you were always aware of nutrition.
Yeah, I've always been aware. I come from a family that have actually sort of disappeared quite young because of illness. So I've always had a big interest in the preventative side of things. And I know that that is possible through nutrition. And gastronomy is lovely, and we all like to eat a gastronomic food, meal at some point. The problem is if people are doing that a lot of the time, they might not be getting the balance right in their everyday lives between good, healthy, simple nutrition and an overabundance of lovely stuff. So it's finding the balance, and I would not say to clients, unless they have particular allergies, intolerances or certain diseases going on, to avoid the gastronomy. I think that's also part and parcel of our lives, and we should enjoy food. We need to have that enjoyment, and we shouldn't be putting more stress on ourselves than we already have. So it's finding the balance, which has always been an essential part of my work. Through movement and nutrition, it's the balance of the two. One goes with the other.
How do you explain this to people here? Here I found out the year I arrived that it was so easy to go from one party to the next, especially in summer. In the full summer, just go like this, drinking rosé and not exactly controlling what you're eating from one buffet to the next. How do you explain to your clients how to navigate all this?
If we're talking about wine, one idea is to consider having, in France, if you want to wine, is to have a piscine, as we call it, so the champagne and the fizzy water, or to simply have sparkling water, add ginger, lemon, mint leaves, whatever you like. It's fine to say no, and we don't have to drink all the time. And there comes a certain point in our lives where our bodies really don't like having alcohol all the time. I do not have that sort of fear of missing out. So I'm very happy to ask for something that I know is going to mean I can get up the next morning and still be 100% switched on. Yes, I like a glass or two of wine, but it will not be when I know I've got to get up and work the day after. So I try and say the same to clients, or I'll explain exactly what it's doing inside their bodies, and that can sometimes be enough to make them take a back step. For women, we call it the rosé roll. So when they've had 3 or 4 months of rosé every day, you can see it around the midriff. It just sits around the middle. So if they don't want that, they know they need to take action.
I can see a lot of people, when they relocate to the south of France, going into the same line of work as you do. Is there any advice you would give them?
It would be, for me personally, I would say to them, do something you're passionate about, because it can take a long time to build up a very good network. Networking's another thing to do, but it can take a long time to build up a good network of people that will want to be your clients. And if you're not passionate about what you do, it can come a bit disheartening. So it has to be something you feel you're learning from them as well. And you don't mind putting in the extra hour or two, because, you know, if you break down the hours you put in, it's not a big salary you might be bringing home compared to a steady full-time job where you're employed by someone. So I think that would be my biggest advice, is only do something you're passionate about. Yeah, I think it's really important to not be shy about what you do. And again, if it's a passion, you won't be. You'll have no problem talking about it. If you've got kids at school, then when the kids are often at birthday parties, you can share what you do. I think now is even easier to get the word out if you have something like an Instagram page or a Facebook page, to spread the word and ask friends to share what you're posting. And if they're good friends, they will. So I do find that when you move away from a place that you're from, I do feel that there is a strong network that you can build where people are willing to help and support each other. And I think that becomes because we don't necessarily have family close to us. So we're very much reliant upon helping each other.
And you mentioned that it takes time to build a business where you get a salary from, and not even exactly a high one.
Yeah.
How long did you say it took you from the moment you arrived in France and the moment where you started to see the benefits of all your work?
I was getting benefits within 6 months of working, just teaching Pilates classes. It was myself that held back because I had 2 young girls. So I still wanted to be there for them, because they were coming back from school and needed help with homework. So I was very controlled around the time that I was giving out to teach people. As soon as they were 7 and 9, and then I started doing the bar classes and studying nutrition, and word got out that I was studying nutrition, it kind of expanded very quickly. I think not just having the Pilates, but also doing the bar, and people thought it was a fascinating form of training. They still do. And there aren't many bar trainers still here. It's a bit like when I came and started Pilates, bar was also a niche, and it still is kind of a niche here. It's not as many bar instructors as there are Pilates instructors. I think the first 5 years is probably slower, and then it did explode.
Would you say mentalities have evolved since you arrived? We weren't talking about nutrition 20 years ago.
There is a bigger focus for sure on nutrition than there ever was before, because more and more people are getting chronic disease. So the world has changed around us, and because of that, we've had to evolve with it. So nutrition plays a big part. So yes, there's movement, but nutrition is 80% of the equation. So it really is essential to get that right, but with the fun stuff also included. So yeah, again, finding that balance.
Every journey brings unexpected lessons. Let's take a moment to reflect on what stands out more from yours. What would you do differently now, knowing what you do? Is there anything which you'd known before you arrived here?
I probably would have liked to have been aware of how much paper stamping there was involved at that time. Nothing was computerized when I moved here. That's happened since. Everything was a whole wad of paper. You'd go to the bank and you'd come back with 100 sheets of paper you'd have to sign. So I think that was a big eye-opener for me. I'm not sure there's anything I could have done differently, except perhaps have jumped in and started my nutrition education even earlier. I think I was holding back for many years, waiting for the right time, but I could have started that even in Denmark.
And I imagine coming from Denmark, where you don't even see a coin, must have been a bit shocking when you arrived here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in Denmark, when I arrived there from England, I was given what's called a CPR number. It's a number that every person has living there. And that literally enrolls you to everything, the dentist, the doctor, the banks, the lot. You just give your CPR number and you're registered everywhere. There's no paper stamping. It's all like, yes, you're registered. It's like, great. So here it's a case of having to go to all the individual areas and sort of set up your own profile with them. So it was very different. But it's a smaller country, Denmark.
But we do have a number, what we commonly call social security, which is actually the INSEE number. It's an individual number. We could go with only that number. It could work.
Yeah.
We could take inspiration from Denmark.
Yeah, could. But there's a lot more people to get manually installed in that way. Is it 67 million in France compared to 6 million in Denmark?
It's very different, obviously. What's the most valuable insight or lesson you've gained through this experience?
Trust the process and trust your gut instinct. I've always listened to internal voices and my gut, and if I don't like something, I won't do it because it doesn't sit right and it doesn't reflect who I am and my own values. So I think I've learned to follow my intuition much more and value what I know. Any moment of doubts through the process? I think we all have moments of doubts, don't we? I think everyone does. It would be not fair to say that I've never had doubts. I think I have doubts every single day, but I'm also extremely grateful for every day. And I learn from my clients, as I said. Hopefully they learn from me. So it's a two-way process all the time. How do you think your life might have unfolded if you hadn't made the move? I think I would have had a very successful business in Denmark if I had taken the same path and studied the same things that I do now here. So both with the bar and the nutrition, because I also have a lot of Danish clients that I see online that have also found it hard maybe to have access to similarly qualified people there. They can be found in every country, but sometimes it's harder to find a nutritionist that is trained in the functional medicine lifestyle way. It's harder to get those courses available in those countries. I do think that I would have had a good business in Denmark, continue to have a good business, and especially seeing that I was already making DVDs, appearing in books and magazines before I left there. My name and my profile was already seen. So hopefully it would just have grown. Yeah, maybe you would have expanded from where you were, whereas coming to France, you had to start from scratch again. Exactly. If I had stayed in Denmark, one of my dreams then was to actually open my own wellness centre. And I actually had the business plan ready for it. Then we moved down here. But because of the way businesses are run here, very, very different. And it's harder to have an entrepreneur here to being self-employed in Denmark or the UK. It was a much harder concept. I would have had to buy my property outright and then rent out rooms to other auto entrepreneurs. But I don't have that capacity to do that. So that was the only way I could have done that being in France. But in Denmark, it would have been easier. Is your clientele now more international or more French, or how would you describe your clientele now? I'd say it's still more international, but I do have a lot of French clients as well. Would you say being an English native speaker helped? Yes, most definitely. It does help. I also think the French have become more confident in their use of the English language. They're not as reserved as they once were. Maybe it's TV and watching films in their own language rather than the dubbed versions that has helped them. But I do find that there is more confidence in French people to speak other languages than there was when I moved here.
And this area is so international as well.
It is, and it's become more international, I think. Either that or I just didn't know where to find the people when I moved here.
You have your clientele here, you have your clientele online, and you also have some retreats, international retreats.
Yeah.
Is this that came naturally, or how did you get into this?
I was recommended to a British company called the Healthy Holiday Company through another nutritional therapist, a very well-esteemed nutritional therapist in the UK, who has also been my mentor. And she suggested I be used for, it's called Inspire Retreats. Inspire is a sister company to the Healthy Holiday Company. So I was taken on to be a nutritional therapist for them. And I've been to Tuscany, I've been to Morocco, I've been to Mustique, and I'm going back to these places this year and working with clients there. So it's been wonderful, and I get to meet again different people that I might not otherwise come into contact with. So it's a really nice evolving way to work and take me out of my comfort zone.
Absolutely, especially when you live in such a beautiful settings here. We tend to stay where we are and not go and see anywhere else.
Yeah.
So this has given you new horizon, new clients.
Yeah.
After they're going through those holidays and sessions with you while they are on holiday, do they carry on their program with you? Is there
That's up to them. So I've had some clients that have asked to follow on and continue with me, and some that have enough from that when the time that I'm with them on the retreat, I can give them enough that they can actually make their journey. For instance, I met a lovely lady last May, and her goal was to come off her blood pressure medication, and to do that we had to look at her diet, and she needed to reduce some body fat. So, and we worked on a plan, and then I heard a few months later by email that she was down 2 dress sizes and she was off her blood pressure medication. So that was 45 minutes of being together. So she didn't need any follow-up. Sometimes it's just good, simple guidance. And if they're willing to follow through and do the steps to make the change, I just guide and give the information, but it's down to the individual to actually take the steps to follow through, and then it might be enough 45 minutes.
That must be really rewarding.
It's extremely rewarding to see clients get the results. So, yeah.
Any other example of clients who have a life-change experience?
Yeah, I was speaking to an 80-year-old male this morning, one of my clients that I started with in January, and he's had extreme sort of bloating and discomfort, lots of horrible symptoms for 10 years, really restricted his diet, and now he's happier than he ever has been. He's eating all kinds of foods, and he says he can't thank me enough. Our journey's not finished. We still have some things to do also because of his age. He's 80 years old. So there are some body processes that automatically slow down. So we just need to make sure that he's well supported, and then he can fly by himself.
This is wonderful, especially for somebody that age. The baby boomers typically is a generation of processed food, a generation of medication. They rely a lot on medication. They usually have a pill box that is as large as my computer sometimes. Do they come to you, or is there something obvious when you talk to them and you slightly get them into nutrition because they came for something else, or do they come directly to you with their problem?
Most clients come to me directly with a problem, but I do hope that by looking at their lifestyle and their nutrition and their, when I talk lifestyle, we're talking sleep and exercise and hydration, a lot of things. If they can start putting some of these elements into practice, they should be able to reduce some of the medication or even come off it completely. So I have another man here in France who was diabetic, and he's not on any medication. So he's really worked very hard. It's been a 3-year process, but he's worked really, really hard. And, you know, anything's possible if the client's willing to take responsibility for their health. So I think that's very important. They can come to me for the guidance, but I can't give them a magic pill. I can give them steps that they can follow, and I'm always there to support them. But ultimately, they have to do a lot of the hard work. It's those gold moments of knowing that you've helped someone, really made a profound change to their health, that keeps me going. If I ever have days where I'm thinking I'm not getting anywhere with this client, or they're just not getting what I'm telling them to do, then you just have to go back and reflect upon the golden moments and those that it has worked out for. So I'm no magician, can't do it all myself.
With all these amazing results, what's the next step?
I have for a number of years considered putting one of my programs into a book format. I think it needs me to be able to sit down and not run around and juggle too many projects to put that into fruition. But it has been a dream to do that. But also I'm at a stage where my 2 girls that I've seen grow up in France are sort of at the stage where they're spreading their wings and flying off. And I'm very much enjoying also seeing that happen. And I want to be able to go and visit them as well, because they're living in different countries. They're not in France anymore, and they're not together in the same country. So you can imagine there's quite a lot of travelling to and fro to just be together sometimes. And that's important for me too.
Would you say, because you mentioned earlier when they were younger children, you made sure that you had time with them in the afternoon, having a professional occupation that allows you to control your time, control the times you're working and control the times you're dedicating to yourself or your family, was an essential ingredient to your success in every moment of your life?
It was, and I was very fortunate that I converted a garage very close to the property into my first studio here. So I don't have a commute, and it's very easy for me to go backwards and forwards to my girls, so I could then juggle with my husband if he was around. Could he watch them for an hour while I did a class? So I was very, very fortunate. I'm very grateful for that.
Is there a moment when, like a proud moment, a moment when you thought, yes, I've made it, or yes, I've really found my place here? Is there anything like this?
I think the fact that I feel that I'm doing something that works has been that I've never gone backwards. So even when COVID hit, my business has still gone from strength to strength. When recessions have hit, I've not lost people. It's continued to grow. So it's not just a reflection on the setup I have, but I also am very flexible with my clients, and I don't expect big pay-ups up front. And I think flexibility is extremely important when it comes to running a business. And there's give and take between the client and myself always.
Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your take on what daily life here on the Riviera really feels like beyond the postcards and glossy image. We can't see it today because it's a grey day, but you have a wonderful view on the Mediterranean before your eyes every morning, every day. Is living on the French Riviera as glamorous as people often imagine?
For myself, yes. I don't know if it is for everyone. I think I'm extremely fortunate to where I live. We did buy a dump that needed renovating. We put a lot of energy into that. So it's not without the hard work behind the scenes. But I think, the climate is lovely. Yes, we get rainy days, but they're not consistent rainy days. We do get all the seasons still. We have an abundance of, I'm very much into growing my own vegetables, and I can grow my own vegetables and have decent fruit trees here. And that is a simple pleasure, I think, that I can have here. So, and there's so many beautiful natural places to be. And again, for me, nature is so important when it comes to our health. So just getting outside and being somewhere, breathing the air and looking at the trees and listening to the birds sing. Yes, I think we do have that in the south of France here. So, compared to other places which are very built up, they don't have that luxury. There are, of course, downsides. I think the infrastructure is not as great as it can be in other places, and we're very much reliant upon using our cars if we're not living in one of the cities to get to places. So I think that would probably be the only downfall, I would say, to being here. It is the lack of ability to get around without a vehicle if you need to.
And if you were living in one of the coastal towns, you wouldn't be able to grow your own vegetables and get your own fruits. And this would be a little bit against what you're doing in nutrition, because it starts as well with quality fruits and vegetables, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So whole foods.
Which place in the region feels the most iconic to you and why?
I really love Nice. Nice is, I've seen it grow, I've seen it evolve since being here. So coming in 2006, I can't say that I warmed to Nice, but seeing what the current mayor has done over the last decade has been absolutely amazing. And it's a lovely place to go, and it's got nice green parks, and it's got lovely sculptures, and I'm very much into sculptures. I love art in that way. And I just think it's got way more to offer than lots of people imagine. There are also smaller places, so that would be a big iconic place, but for me, I live very close to woodland, and I can go up the hill and get into sort of the local town of Grasse, going through the mountain area and not see a person. And I think for me, that is very special as well.
It must have been a bet when you bought this place to be so remote from, well, it's not far away, but it's a bit remote from the coastal towns. Nobody wanted to live here. When we would name the small village where you live, everybody would say, nobody would know where it was.
Not at all.
And everybody would think it was so remote and so far away from everything.
Yeah, so again, we had to use a car, and we had to drive everywhere. And I came from Denmark, where we used to being on bikes to get from one place to another, or walk, or even jump on the train. It was easy to walk to the station and jump on the train. Everything was easy. So I think that was the hardest part about being here, was not having the same infrastructure. But there are pros and cons to living everywhere.
From your perspective, how do you see the region evolving culturally or professionally?
I think thanks to the advances in technology, that professionally it's possible to grow your business wherever you are. Culturally, I see an influx of funds being put into Grasse. And Grasse is a lovely old city that has been neglected for many years. And now you can see it sort of growing and thriving almost again, which is lovely, especially when I'm so close to it, but have seen it being neglected. So that's been tricky. I also think there are a lot of foreign people, and I know, maybe it's not necessarily a good thing in the eyes of the French people, but they are bringing money with them and bringing some properties up to a standard that is very beautiful compared to how they were before. So I think the evolvement in that way is very nice to see.
The diversity, it really... Yeah. And without the diversity and without the international community, I'm not sure that towns like Grasse would develop as much as they do. Or even can, or small villages like Valbonne. Look,
exactly.
Valbonne was a tiny village in the 70s that has evolved to a small town now, completely international.
Yeah, and I love the fact that my kids could have an international education at a local school in Grasse. And I like the fact that I can go to a local town, Roquefort, and watch a film in the original language. They're not always dubbed anymore, and things like that are very good ways in which things have evolved that weren't that way maybe 10 years ago.
So maybe the region has opened up to diversity, and it's a good thing.
Most definitely. And they're getting more used to, when it comes to nutrition, making products that have been available in other places for many, many years and catching on to actually we can do that ourselves and make our own products here too. So I've actually been involved with, I gave the recipe to Riviera Kombucha for their Super Detox kombucha, and it's one of their best sellers. So, you know, now there's a local kombucha company. It started in Grasse. I think they're still in Grasse, but they are actually known all over France now. And that's only in the last few years.
And it's your recipe in it?
The Super Detox is my recipe that I gave to them.
Wonderful, I should try this.
You can see my logo on the back of the bottle.
Oh, I can't wait. I should go and get it. Christine, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It's been a pleasure to hear how you've built a balanced, purposeful life here on the Riviera, rooted in wellness and authenticity.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Living the Dream French Riviera. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share, follow and like. It really helps others discover the podcast. You can find more about Christine and other inspiring women building meaningful lives on the Riviera on our website, livingthedreampodcast.com. And if you'd like to support my work, you'll also find a link there to help me keep creating new episodes of Living the Dream. A heartfelt thank you to Claire Long, whose music adds warmth and emotion to every episode. I am Cecile and this has been Living the Dream French Riviera podcast. À bientôt.